So I consider I had really fantastic childhood growing up. My mother and father own a grain farm west of Toowoomba, and my only brother, Carl, and I were fortunate enough to always have good ponies, thanks to Mum, to learn to ride on, and had nice horses that we did everything on, really, camp drafting and sporting and barrel racing. However, I very quickly got focused on the jumping horses because that was my passion. Mum tells a wonderful story where we had to muster the cattle for the neighbour in the paddock, the property behind us. And Carl is a very good horseman and a very good professional camp drafter himself. And he would always be getting cross with me because I'd let the cattle go because I was focusing on finding a jump or a log to jump over in the paddock. So. I had a lovely mare called Spice, and she wasn't a mare at all. She was a really lovely natured horse, and she was super. She could do everything, you know. We learnt to ride on her. As we got better, she could do that as well. You know, she could jump, she could do barrel racing, she could do camp drafting. She was wonderful with the cattle, and just a super horse to learn on, and perhaps a big part of my early stages of my development. Yes, it was an interesting path I took. I did do quite a lot of show jumping in Queensland because there were so many country shows around us, and it was a good thing to do. And we had thoroughbreds that we'd found off the track, and my young rider horse really was shortly after Pony Club Dio, and he was responsible for my career, if I really think about it. He took me all the way from there to 4-star eventing, would you believe? So eventually I decided I wanted to go and be a working pupil, and I moved down south, down to New South Wales, where a lot of the top riders were based at the time around Lochinvar. And I was Kevin McNab's working pupil, and I was based there before moving to Sydney, where I eventually set up my own business, and the rest is history, really. Well, of course, it was professionalism more than anything. You know, I was very much just doing the sport at a really low level, and it was professionalism that I learned. Of course, I learned so many wonderful skills off Kevin, and as we know, he also was the boss for Jock Pageant, who was another working student of his. So I think that speaks volumes for Kevin as a trainer. But it was hard work. You know, he's a hard worker and he's hard to keep up with. But taught us a lot, and indeed I'm very grateful because he was a very soft rider with the horses, and is a very soft rider, you know, never against them, never fighting them, always with the horse. And I think this was one of the wonderful things that got us in the right direction. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think about it a lot, and to be honest, I think I'm still having my gap year after school. So, as my dad says, I should probably take it seriously and get a real job at some stage. But nevertheless, here we are now. It is a wonderful thing if you're fortunate enough to be able to work with horses and the animals that we love and have that as your job. So I do have to shake myself around and think how lucky I am from time to time. But again, this horse really took me all the way. This Dio Giovanti, this wonderful little chestnut who could do everything very well, let me see that I could be a professional rider. And then when I set up becoming a professional and having owners, and I decided this is how I was going to model my business. And it took me a long time. I did a lot of other things. I rode track work. I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning riding race horses to help fund it all, until I was functioning fully as a performance horse rider. So. No, Mum found him. We found him in horse deals back in the day. And I can't remember, it was like $4,000, and the family was very stressed about spending this amount of money on a horse. And I remember looking at him thinking, he's too small, I'll be too big for him in a couple of years. But he was a superstar. If you wanted to go better on the flat, you just paid a dressage trainer locally, or you just learnt and had some dressage lessons, and you went better on the flat. He was extraordinary. He very rarely had a rail down, and I can tell you now, if we did have rails down, it was all my fault. And whilst he was cheeky on the cross country and would have the odd stop, it was only because I was making huge mistakes on him. He was incredibly tolerant and fast. I just remember how fast he was. You know, I always thought it was strange as a young rider why professional advanced riders would have time faults. That always struck me as an odd thing to do. I thought surely you just go faster. But as I've since learned, it's not that simple.